Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Academy for Addiction and Mental Health Nutrition and our monthly consultation group. We're going to jump right in with Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome. Go for it, Elena.
Right. Yeah, so we have this potential client, a 32-year-old woman who recently ended up in the ER with the syndrome and had the IVB1, and this was at a hospital in Nebraska, actually, and the word is that she has some unreversible brain injury. That's what they're saying, but the swelling, since then has gone down. The family has hired a in-person helper to watch and make sure she takes her meds and things like that. She has a really traumatic history with her birth parents both being addicts and alcoholics, and with the mother also having had anorexia. And both of the parents are dead. The mother having died in 2015. She does also, she had some gray matter in the brain. Her liver levels, as of this Monday, when Jeff and I met with the mother and stepfather, her liver levels are now normal. So they're looking to, and also she has a lot of trouble with her physical balance, like just physically. Her, wants to regain her balance. That's what they're looking for help with, is brain healing, regaining her balance, and her going forward along the way to, being independent again and reuniting with her young children who are age 9 and 11.
Has she stopped drinking, and is she willing to stop drinking?
She has stopped drinking since she was found unconscious and ended up in the Nebraska hospital.
Well, yeah, but she's not going to drink in the hospital. How long has she been home now?
She's been home for a few weeks, maybe a month at the most.
Okay, so she's at high relapse risk.
High relapse risk. And the interesting thing, seeing on Zoom, like how the parents, who are the only ones we've met so far, are looking at this, is the way a lot of people do it, because they don't understand alcoholism and addiction. They don't understand it. They're like, oh God, yeah, she never wants to drink again. Yeah, that ain't gonna happen. Like, she is so over it. And Jeff and I are like, in our brains, rolling our eyes up into our heads, going, yeah, right.
Yeah, they don't understand neurotransmitter depletion.
They do not.
Are they going to go through your ARIT training so they can get some education?
Well, this is going to be part of what Jeff and I are going to propose in our next meeting with them this coming Monday, in a couple of days.
Great.
Because Jeff incorporates that in his own psychotherapy practice, like not specifically ARIT, before ARIT, but he's been incorporated. I mean, if you look at his website, it's family therapy. I mean, he's absolutely family therapy.
Yeah, he's a family therapist. Okay, so he's going to be doing the family therapy more or less, and you're going to do the health coaching and nutrition with the daughter.
Exactly.
That's wonderful. That's exciting. So what have you found about the Wernicke-Korsakoff? And you can consult with a member of our community, Elena, who does have it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah, I'll text you his name.
Okay,
And
oh, that would
contact
be
info.
great, because I was gonna wait till after this next meeting on Monday, and then like put it out there in the Facebook group, like, hey, anybody, got input to this, because, again, it's so interesting how people in general just don't equate food with any of this. Like,
That's interesting you say that. Oh my
there's
God.
no connection whatsoever.
Oh my God.
Like, it didn't
I had
occur to
something
me.
similar to that today, this week. What are we
Really?
Saturday? Yeah, just last week. Similar to exactly what you're saying. It was just beneath me. Now, if you would think that this is somebody that doesn't have the resources or is not worldly or haven't read some books, or you'd say, okay, they just can't connect. But I'm talking about people that are well educated, right? And they have the resources, and his response was, how is it that food is going to have any effect on my blood?
There you go.
And I was like, wait. Oh my God. Just amazing. Yeah, that Discord, it's like a chapters missing, like segments of it
Yes.
missing,
Yeah.
where they can't correlate that. Now, when I hear Wernicke syndrome, I immediately think of thiamine, because that's when I was introduced to thiamine like 40 years ago during my internship at
Right.
the
But
at the
it
children's.
turns out, Aileen, that it's more than just that.
It is.
Of
Yeah.
course. Magnesium generally is with it, but because of their inability to, I'm not sure ever. I think it's one of those things, if it was the chicken or the egg, if it's they just have a generalized metabolic issues with absorption and transportation of the nutrients, or is it that the alcohol actually causes the lining of the intestinal tract, or could it be both, that they're genetically prone,
I mean,
right?
Aileen, it can always have genetic predisposition. We know this, but we also know that alcohol destroys the lining of the gut and eats up thiamine.
Right. Yes.
That the body uses up its store of thiamine to help metabolize alcohol. So if you're a heavy drinker over a long period of time, your thiamine stores become profoundly depleted. But the experience of our student is that, not just going on the B1, which he'd been on, he stopped drinking about 7 years ago. And it's impacted his speech, his mobility, his cognition, his everything. Okay.
Same with this woman. Yeah.
But we treated it as brain inflammation, because the thiamine repletion wasn't by itself getting him better, right?
Of
And
course.
so bringing in the aminos, bringing in the the good multivitamin for everything else, bringing in the fish oil to reduce brain inflammation, right? What he's found, and I don't know what else he's done, you can talk to him about it, but over the year and a half that he's been in our community, his speech is significantly better, his cognition is significantly better, his balance and gait are significantly better, right? And people are looking at him and saying, you're a new person, what happened? And he credits it to everything he's learned in the academy. So, very, very exciting, because they had told him it was irreversible. And yet it's reversing. over the past year and a half, you know, completely gone? No, but significantly better to the point that people around him are noticing. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I just sent you his contact info.
Yes, I thank you, Christina. I also suspect strongly, but it didn't come up in the initial meeting this week, that this young woman's mother, who died of, alcoholism and addiction, that this young woman probably, that the biological mother probably drank while pregnant. That is my
Yes.
guess.
So we have, alcohol,
Fetal alcohol
fetal
syndrome.
alcohol syndrome, but also, or fetal alcohol effect.
Yeah.
Now, we've never really talked much about those two disorders, in this community. But what some of the research indicates is that low levels of omega-3 fatty acids definitely correlate with both FAE and FAS.
Sure.
And that by bringing in the much higher levels of the omega-3s, you can reduce a lot of the symptoms of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, the
that's
morphology.
First thing I thought of when we were talking to them, I was like, omega-3s.
You see, exactly, because it's brain inflammation.
How is her digestion, Ellen?
Oh, yeah.
We haven't actually met her yet, only the mom and the stepdad. I suspect it's pretty awful.
Mm.
That's my suspicion. That's my assumption, actually.
So here's going to be my other hypothesis, even though her liver enzymes are back to normal, is I would definitely look for signs of ammonia toxicity.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, depending upon how much money they have to throw at this,
Yeah.
if she has like a 23andMe or Ancestry or something that we can push through a panel, I'd be really interested in looking at her, her CBS SNPs, her ability to detoxify ammonia. And you may need to bring in, there are lab tests you can do to measure ammonia levels.
Yeah.
And if she's still connected to the hospital, then, they may be able to do some ammonia levels on her, because apparently, doing ammonia like through LabCorp or Quest is just a little tricky, but the hospital should be able to set up to do it.
Okay.
And, you can bring in ammonia detoxification strategies, which include GLA. This is where, okay, so I personally don't usually do the really high dose GLA that John Matthew Larson recommends.
Yeah.
Because I find that it can backfire. But when you have high ammonia, then and high cravings, that's a really good time to do that 300 milligrams of GLA, a couple of times a day, and then you can back down to something a little more normal. But that L-glutamine.
Yeah.
And a couple of other things.
Yeah.
Really,
Yeah.
NAC really
The
help
NAC, yes.
reduce ammonia levels.
Okay. The NAC. Yeah, there's a lot of good YouTubes on the syndrome. So I've been like sticking my head down that rabbit hole all week. So,
Tell us, what are you learning?
well, the NAC came off, and then also it's like there's a distinction between, it's kind of two syndromes put together. There's the acute syndrome, and then there's the crossing that line over into that chronic, and then how much damage is there. So it's really like two different names, and then they're just kind of put together, and everybody who doesn't get into it thinks it's just like one thing.
Yeah. Ah, so the chronic Wernicke-Korsakoff syndrome is a little different in terms of symptoms than the chronic? Or what
A
makes them
little bit,
different?
there's overlap, but then there are some differences. Both of them involve the B1, you know, at least initially.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah. Now, this, the guy who sent me his contact info, is he in the academy?
Yes.
Oh, all right. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. He's finished level 1, is making his way through the internship group.
That's great.
So Ellen, do you think there's two things involved with this client?
Yes, I mean, yeah, definitely. Although, you know, initially, I mean, literally, they found her like completely on the floor, unable to get up and psychotic and couldn't walk. So that momentarily is acute, but because she's been like, you know, drinking and this and that and this and that since she was like 15.
How old is she
Then
now?
32.
Wow.
That, and plus probably fetal alcohol stuff as well. Oh, and one other thing. When they found her on the floor, it turns out that there had also been a gas leak in her house.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what Jeff and I did. We were like, what?
wow.
So you probably have some pretty significant anoxia.
Yeah. What's it called? Anoxia?
Anoxia, where lack of oxygen to the brain can cause brain damage.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So like, boy, put those together, you've got acute, you've got chronic, you've got it all.
Yeah, so, getting those aminos in there, which will hopefully work. Sometimes anoxia can make response to nutrients happen a little more slowly, but, you stick with it. Getting those aminos in there are going to reduce her relapse risk because,
Yeah.
she's highly, because there's so much wrong. She's at very high relapse risk, even though she swears up and down she's not.
And
So,
her family thinks that it's the same thing. She never wants to drink again. Oh yeah, I get it. That's not gonna happen. That's literally what they were doing.
well, yeah.
Jeff and I are just sitting there.
And that's
going,
probably, and you see, that's probably what she's doing and saying right now too.
Yeah,
Also not understanding the fact that this is so much bigger than her.
yes, much bigger.
Is this the first time she's found herself being this sick?
I believe so. There's been many other, just, constant drama, like with all addiction, just like, she can't see, she doesn't have her kids, they're age 9 and 11, so yeah. Yeah,
So it would be worth finding out, are her kids also in Nebraska?
they are with the father. I don't think they're in Nebraska, but I can't find right now where they are.
So it would be worthwhile finding, you've heard of Betty Ford's children's program.
I have not.
Okay, so Betty Ford, one of the members of our community, Allison Harden from California, used to run the not California, Colorado, used to run the Betty Ford Children's Program in Colorado for a very long time. And it's designed for school-age children of people with, alcohol and addictive use disorders and substance use disorders. And it's very good in attacking the codependency that gets passed down to children growing up in addicted families,
Yeah,
and the shame and the guilt and all of that.
yes,
So wherever he lives, finding the resources. So the, Betty Ford Children's Program is all over.
okay, okay.
And I forget the name of the guy who started it. Somebody Mo, I think. Anyway,
It'll come up when I
yeah,
Google it.
it will. But seeing if those resources exist in his community,
Yeah,
it helps reduce, the children themselves developing addictive disorders,
yeah,
when they grow up.
yes.
So getting the children into a program would be amazing.
That's so good. Thank you. That's so good.
So how does this reflect on the children as far as codependency is involved? How does it
So,
look?
so if you remember, the lecture in level 2 on adrenals and codependency, what generally, so we have a little discussion there on the impact on children. It can manifest in a number of different ways, but the deep down thing that happens is that children automatically take responsibility for whatever bad is happening in the family.
Yeah.
And so feel guilt, shame, and the need to fix it.
Oh,
And very often they grow up without any personal boundaries. They're not taught feeling skills. They're not taught appropriate stress management skills because the parents don't have it, so they don't learn them.
Yep.
They're not taught the difference between me and you and what's appropriate responsibility and what's not. They're also inheriting whatever the genetic issues were that the parents had, the kids now have. And then, if you read the books on adult children of alcoholic or adult children of addiction, what happens is that children in a dysfunctional or painful family, based on their birth order as well as their personality style, the kind of hardwired personality style, gravitate to a particular family role that then becomes part of their kind of almost hardwired personality style. And it becomes very rigid. So, we all kind of move in and out of family roles as needed, family functions as needed. But in a very painful family, this family role becomes rigidified
ah,
and we identify it, becomes part of our identity. So that when we become adults, we don't know how to do anything else.
Yeah.
We don't know how to be flexible in different roles, in different situations. We're stuck in this one way of being in the world that, while could be very useful, can also end up being incredibly destructive. And some roles are
this
more
is where
destructive.
rigidity comes from.
But this is, yes, very, and of course they end up with the same neurotransmitter drained from stress that everybody else in the family has. So that's going to reinforce the rigidity. Because serotonin is so low. So it all intertwines, but what happens then is it sets these children up either for their own addictive disorders it sets them up for similar patterns in adulthood than to marry somebody with an addictive disorder if they don't develop one themselves. So catching it at school age and beginning to offer these children a different way of understanding, different skills, different belief system, you can put them on a road to healing rather than a road to disaster.
Yeah,
Because this is how just addiction passes down through the family tree. Haha. Part of it's genetic, but part of it's also, you know, family role behavior.
yep. Oh, you know, I didn't mention, because I have so many notes, that after this acute emergency that went down with her, that there was at some point they actually had her do hyperbaric chamber treatment.
Oh, that's useful. That's good for the to offset the anoxia.
Yeah, and they said that by the second treatment that her brain fog was out.
Mhm. Good. Get the rest of the effect of that gas out of her brain.
Yeah, yeah, okay, okay. Okay. That is a connection there. Perfect. So yeah, so yeah, I will definitely get in touch with that gentleman in our community. There's Kathy.
Yeah, he's a lovely person. He lives in West Virginia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're gonna have a little bit of a time zone issue, but
That's okay. I'm super flexible, like with time. I can reach her at 5 a.m. That's cool.
hi, Kathy, welcome. We only have about 10 more minutes, but do you have any questions for us? We've had a very good discussion.